Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Suraj. In this last part of lecture series on ECG, we'll discuss a few MCQs regarding ECG and how to approach them. So we'll start right away. The first question: a 55-year-old man comes to your OPD with complaints of palpitations. His ECG is given below. Which of the following physical findings cannot be seen? So the question is trying to tell you is that first you have to arrive at a diagnosis looking at the ECG and then see which of these findings is not seen in that condition. So the options given here are S3 heart sound, split of S2, S4 heart sound, and diastolic murmur of MS. So let's look at this ECG. As you can see in this ECG, clearly the rhythm is irregularly irregular. So first thing is there is irregularly irregular rhythm. And the second thing you look here is there are multiple small waves here. As you can see, there are multiple fibrillary waves and there is absence of P wave. So in this ECG there are no P waves. There are multiple fibrillary waves. And no isoelectric baseline. And irregularly irregular rhythm. So all these conditions makes you come to a diagnosis of atrial fibrillation. So atrial fibrillation is your diagnosis. Now let's look at the options. So they're asking which of these findings is not seen in atrial fibrillation. So first, S3 sound. S3 sound is nothing but ventricular gallop rhythm. So that is seen because of forceful blood filling into the left ventricle. So this can be seen in atrial fibrillation. Coming to split of S2. Again, split of S2 can be seen in atrial fibrillation. And we'll come to this S4 sound later. So coming to option D. So this has to be D. Option D, diastolic murmur of mitral stenosis. So as you all know, mitral stenosis is the cause of atrial fibrillation. So diastolic murmur of mitral stenosis can be seen in atrial fibrillation. So S4 sound. So S4 sound is also known as atrial gallop rhythm. So this is seen when there is a strong atrial contraction. So as you all know, in atrial fibrillation there is no atrial contraction as such. This atria is just wiggling and there is no strong atrial contraction. So S4 sound can never be heard in atrial fibrillation. So your answer here is S4 sound. So this is your answer. So coming to the next question. A patient comes to the casualty with altered sensorium. After looking at his ECG, which is given below here, what specific investigation would you like to order to confirm your diagnosis? So as you all know, ECG is one of the most important investigation which is done in the casualties. So in this ECG, what is most striking is these tall waves here. These extremely tall waves. So what are these tall waves? They are T waves. So they are tall T waves. They are tall T waves. So which condition do you find this characteristic tall T waves with a narrow base? With a narrow base. So it is seen in hyperkalemia, that is increase in potassium levels. So what investigation would you like to do to confirm this diagnosis? You would do a serum potassium level. So the answer is serum potassium level. So now let's look at what are the ECG findings seen in electrolyte disturbances. So the most important is potassium, because potassium directly affects the cardiac conduction. So the normal potassium range is, so this is according to Harrison, 3.5 to 5.1. milliequivalents per liter of blood. So in hyperkalemia, you find tall peaked T wave with a narrow base. So you find tall peak T wave with a narrow base, and there is short QT and ST depression. So this you can see here, there is tall T wave with a short base or a narrow base, and you can also find a short QT interval, and it may or may not be accompanied by an ST depression. Whereas in hypokalemia, there is decrease in potassium concentration, you find flattening or inversion of T waves. So that is, rather than these waves being normal like this, you find a flat or a inversion of T wave, or there can be T wave inversions. So this is seen in hypokalemia, and along with this there can be QT prolongation. So as you can see here, this QT can be prolonged also, and U waves may become prominent in hypokalemia also. So coming to the next electrolyte imbalance, which is a disturbance of calcium concentration. So in hypercalcemia, you find that the QT interval is shortened, and the QT is shortened, and the T wave is also widened and flat. So let's look at this ECG here. So let's look at this ECG. Here you can see that this QT interval is short. QT is short, and T wave is widened. So QT is short and T wave is widened. So this is seen in hypercalcemia. So now coming to hypocalcemia, you find the opposite of this. So you find a prolonged QT interval. So in hypercalcemia, as you can see, the QT interval is prolonged. You can see there, you can see here also. So the QT interval is prolonged. You can see here, this QT interval is prolonged. So QT interval prolongation is seen in hypocalcemia. So in hypercalcemia, you find a short QT interval. In hypocalcemia, you find a prolonged QT interval. So now coming to the next ECG, a 60-year-old lady with history of cardiac failure is on unknown medication, and she's come to the casualty with lethargy and dizziness. ECG of the patient is given below. What could be the possible diagnosis? So now this, as you all know, this ECG, if you look at lead 2, so what is most striking in this ECG? So here what is most striking is the ST segment and T wave. So as you can see in lead 2, there is ST segment, there's a downward slope of ST segment and T wave. So there's a downward slope of ST segment with T wave, as you can see here. So this is a classic finding seen in digoxin toxicity. So this is seen in digoxin toxicity. So in digoxin toxicity, you find a downward sloping ST segment. So this downward sloping ST segment, it resembles this pattern. So what does this look like? This looks like a reverse tick sign. So a tick is nothing but this. So this looks like a reverse tick sign because there's a downward slope of ST pattern. So the answer for this question is digoxin overdose. So what are the clues in this question? Say suppose you didn't know that a reverse tick sign is seen in digoxin toxicity. So look at the question. Question is asking history of cardiac failure. So digoxin is one of the medications used in cardiac failure because of its inotropic action on unknown medication. So this can give you some clue that that the question is trying to ask you any drug overdose. So let's rule out heart block. There's no heart block here. As I explained in the previous video, what are the ECG changes in heart block? MI, again no MI changes on this ECG, and pulmonary embolism. So if you know the ECG changes in pulmonary embolism, you know here that there are no pulmonary embolism changes in this ECG. So we'll discuss this later. So by eliminating options also you can come to a diagnosis of digoxin overdose. But now remember, from now on, remember that reverse tick sign or downward sloping ST segment is a sign of digoxin toxicity. It's an important MCQ. Now coming to the next question. A 70-year-old man underwent total hip replacement. The next day after surgery, he complains of breathlessness. As the doctor on call, you ask for an ECG, which is given here. Which of the following signs is not seen on chest X-ray in this condition? Westermarck sign, Hampton's hump, Pallas sign, and Ellis curve. So what this question is trying to tell you is, they're asking you to diagnose the condition based on this clinical history and this ECG, and they're asking you which of these signs is not seen in that condition, in that diagnosis. So let's look at this ECG. So as you look at this ECG, what are the most striking features which we see? So first one, in V1, V2, V3, you can find this RSR pattern. What is RSR pattern? There is prominent R wave, NS wave, and there is an R dash wave. So there is a positive wave after S wave. So the first thing which you see is RSR pattern, RSR dash pattern. So this is an RBBB like pattern. So RSR pattern is seen. So next, coming to this, here there's a prominent S wave here. There's a prominent S wave here in lead 1. And here there's a prominent Q wave. In lead 3 there's a prominent Q wave. And there is T inversion here in lead 3. So there is, in lead 1 there is S wave prominence, in Q wave in 3, and T wave inversion in 3. So this is classically known as S1 Q3 T3 pattern. So this is classically seen in pulmonary embolism. So the diagnosis here is pulmonary embolism. So what are the ECG findings seen in pulmonary embolism? The first one is RSR dash pattern or an RBBB like pattern. The second thing which also can be seen is a rightward QRS axis shift. Rightward QRS axis shift can also be seen. And the characteristic thing is S1 Q3 T3 pattern, which is classical of pulmonary embolism. So what are the X-ray signs seen in pulmonary embolism? So this you have to remember, that Westermarck sign is seen in pulmonary embolism, Hampton's hump is seen in pulmonary embolism, Pallas sign is also seen in pulmonary embolism. So these three signs are seen in pulmonary embolism. So the answer here is Ellis curve. So as you all know, Ellis curve is seen in chest X-ray of pleural effusion and not pulmonary embolism. So let's look at these ECG findings. So here, as you can see, this is Westermarck sign. So Westermarck sign is nothing but focal oligemia. Focal oligemia. Oligemia is a region of decreased blood supply. So because there is pulmonary embolism in one of the pulmonary arteries, there is decreased blood supply to that part of the lungs. So that looks more lucent. So as you can see here, hyperlucency in his lung field. So this is focal oligemia, which is Westermarck sign. Now coming to this, so this is called Hampton's hump. Hampton's hump. So because of an pulmonary infarct because of pulmonary embolism, there is peripheral wedge-shaped opacity. So peripheral wedge-shaped opacity in pulmonary embolism is known as Hampton's hump. So coming to this third sign on the chest X-ray is Pallas sign. So Pallas sign is specifically seen in right descending pulmonary artery embolism. So when there is a pulmonary embolism of the right descending artery, that right descending artery gets enlarged. Proximal to the embolus, it gets enlarged. So that is seen as a area here. So this notching which is seen here is enlarged right descending pulmonary artery, which is known as Palla's sign. So that's it for this lecture series on ECG. So I hope you understand all the concepts of ECG. So from now on, if you see any ECG, you should not get scared, and you should know how to read an ECG and how to arrive at a diagnosis. Thank you.